Hello YouTube, and welcome to the comic book channel. For today's video, we're going to be doing another comic book review, and it's going to be on the Image / Skybound book Stellar #1. Really quick before we start the video, if you're new here or if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. Really helps me out if I know, how many people are interested in watching my videos, so I can know what to produce and how many to produce and all that. Of course, please leave a thumbs up and please leave a comment letting me know, what you thought about the review or what you thought about the book or whatever. So sorry, just wanted to get that out of the way really quick at the beginning. And then the next thing I want to get out of the way is this is going to be a weird review, really weird. Usually I go over like a synopsis of the book with a lot of spoilers, pretty detailed synopsis. Then I go in on my impressions, and then I go on like a star great rating. I'm gonna try to do that here, but this one's gonna be different. It was a different book, and while I know how I feel about it, like what it took to get to that conclusion was a different process than what I'm used to. Usually I read a book, I have immediate thoughts about it, I recollect what I recollect from it. Maybe at worst I read it again. This was nothing like that. This was a completely different process. And it's just because of the way it's written and set up. Not to say that it's written or set up bad, but it's just different. So anyways, let me go ahead and break into the review synopsis of Stellar #1 from what I can tell you. So Stellar #1 starts out with, we're basically on this like war-torn planet. Can't tell if we're in the aftermath of a war or the middle of a war. It probably says somewhere, but I lost it at some point. And we're essentially like in that bounty hunter type story. It's stuff you've, seen or heard before. An intergalactic, bounty hunter picks up their bounty and, goes to cash in on it. That's the story. That's the simple story. From there, we have this character, the main character, Stellar, who is basically coming in and out of telling you a story of how she became what she is and what happened. She was, I guess, basically like a bad person who killed a lot of people, maybe in this war. And she's kind of, I won't say like cold to it now, to the point to where she doesn't care, but it's just like not really something she's just easily gonna start talking about, obviously. So it's gonna be weird getting her backstory. We're obviously going to get it, but I think it's going to be in the same way that it's presented in this issue, like in little like flashes, like of a panel or two here or there, which is fine. But to go back, we start with her bringing this bounty in. Now the bounty, which I can't remember the name, I tried to read it again before I started this review, but it's some weird like alien insect looking creature. It's not a humanoid at all, and it has a strange name, and it's a guy. Sorry, but he provides like a little bit of comic relief, because there's not really much like comedy or anything in this book. It's just pretty straight like sci-fi adventure, epic fantasy stuff. So he's kind of asking a lot of questions, trying to get out like he's basically like well, tell me what's going on, tell me your story, blah blah blah. I want to hear it. I got a whole bunch of time, or I don't mind this taking a long time, or something like that. So again, we don't get much of her story. I'm sure that will come out, over the next few issues. Now, basically, all that happens in the issue, because it is pretty uneventful. But all that happens is she tries to take this bounty and she tells a little bit of her backstory. You see a few flashes here and there of pieces of her backstory, and we learn that basically I couldn't tell if it was because of the ongoing war, the aftermath of war or whatever, that she wasn't able to turn this bounty in and collect on it, or if it was for some other reason. But for some reason or another, whoever was going to give her the exchange for the bounty on this thing doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of like lost in the red tape, and she's just gonna have to figure out what to do with them herself, and she does that. Goes and finds somewhere to take him to, and a punishment for him or whatever. And again, like there's not really much story to go off of there. That's pretty much it. If that sounds like a half realized just little glimpse of a story, that's all it was. Like, if I would imagine if I was scripting this and I wrote this script, it would be like two sentences, like girl named Stellar brings bounty onto planet, tells the bounty of her past, tries to turn in bounty, can't collect money on the bounty. and that was it. But what is positive about it is I can tell that they're going for this big epic story. I can tell they're going to get there. I see the potential in it. It's just not something you're going to get in this first issue at all. And the artwork is beautiful. It's really, really nice artwork. They did such a great job on the artwork. And again, I can tell, whoever wrote the script, Joseph Keddings, I can't say names. Joseph K. Joe K. He definitely knows how to write, but it's written in a very strange way. It's almost like if you took like that first episode of the rebooted Lost in Space on Netflix, and instead of having that little bit of backstory that they gave you, just like got dropped into the middle of it and took out some of those and just put them in flashbacks, which I know they did, but you understand what I mean. You stripped away most of that. Like, that's kind of how this was written. Like, they have an overarching story, and they'll get to it. It's just not here in that first issue. It's not something you can pick up and enjoy on its own. You're going to have to read the next issues to get anything out of this, which is here nor there. I truly believe that a comic book should be able to stand on its own, that you should be able to read this book and get enjoyment out of it if you don't plan on reading the next one. But in 2018, that's just not really where we are with comic books, especially like these independent titles. I mean, that has its place, because there's definitely a sacrifice there. You get better stories, and you get stuff that pushes boundaries, and you get these different things that you wouldn't get if they were all able to be one and dones or whatever. But on the flip side, you've got to buy in, you've got to wait, you have to, like a lot of these Image titles, you have to commit to it. You have to say, okay, this had enough of an impact on me to where I'm going to go next month and buy issue 2. And while this did, and I will, most of them fall flat of that. Most of them I don't want to give that second chance to, because even though I thought the first issue was good or okay or whatever, it's hard to go back to that second one because it's been a month. I don't care anymore. There's a slew of number ones coming out again that I need to catch up with. I've got to pay the, $4 cover price. Like, it's hard whenever they're written the way they are. Now, again, on the flip side of that, you have anthology series, like, they do have an arching story, but that are one and dones, like stuff like the Ice Cream Man, that in my opinion are just written really bad, and I would rather have something like this. So it's one of those things. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess, whatever the hell that means. Either way, back to Stellar, it's very confusing. It was for me, at least. I had no idea what was going on, other than the very simple story that it was, talking about, that was written. But the artwork was really beautiful. So I feel like, the artwork definitely compensated for that. There was a nice little story in the back of the book that I won't spoil anything on. You read it yourself, but it was very nice. It was cool to read something like that in the back of one of these kind of books. And sorry, I had to hit a button there. And that's really all I can say about it. It's going to be very difficult for you to click on a YouTube video that talks about Stellar #1 and understand what happened, because I read the book and I don't really know what happened. But I mean, this is something you'll have to commit to. Like, you can't really just read this single issue and then go from there. Like, this, sad to say, but this is probably something that would be better in a trade. I'm only basing that off one issue so far, but it just seems that way. So that's the synopsis. Those are my impressions. And then I'll just give it a rating, which it's going to be hard. But, I do a 10-point rating, and I'm going to say it's going to be hard. I want to give the artwork like a 9 because it was great and I really loved it. But, the book definitely drags that down. I'd have to give the book a 3. So I'm going to go 4 altogether, 4 out of 10. I do still think you should read it, and, hopefully you're more intelligent than me, you'll get something out of it, but it was lost on me. I really didn't understand it that well. And again, I understand it was a very simple story, and I get that. It's not that I can't read that and appreciate it, but, like, just what they said and what they were going for, I felt like were two very different things. So, but what they illustrated was insanely beautiful. So, if not for anything, maybe just for the artwork alone. So that's my review on Stellar #1. So thank you guys so much. See you tomorrow.